Estamos aquí sentados con el...
We're seated here with Father Alberto of the Interchurch Commission for Justice and Peace to talk about the situation of the Nonam indigenous people. They are currently displaced from their reservation in the lower Calima region of Valle de Cauca. Good morning, Father. How are you?
Muy buenos días.
A very good morning to you. Thank you very much for taking the time to speak to me.
Para empezar y ponernos un poco en el
To
contexto.
begin with, and to give us a little bit of context, could you tell us who are the Nonam? How many are they and where are they now? Or rather, where did they go when they were displaced?
Los Nonam son una comunidad indígena de la
The
familia.
Nonam are an indigenous community of the Waunan family, and they live in Lower Calima on collective territory that they share with Afro-descendant communities. At the moment, they are displaced and living in a shelter in Buenaventura in inhumane conditions. There are 95 families. 2 children have been born into this situation of displacement, and some children have died, precisely due to a lack of food and medical attention from the government.
En asistencia en salud por parte del gobierno.
¿Y cuáles son los factores que
And what are the factors that initially caused the displacement? What is the dynamic between the armed forces in the area, and what are the economic interests behind their actions?
El año pasado, en julio y
In
agosto,
July and August of last year, there was a paramilitary incursion into the territory of the Afro-descendant and indigenous communities along the San Juan River and the part where it runs into Lower Calima. Communities from the hamlet known as La Palestina were displaced, and there were acts of aggression against the communities by paramilitaries in collaboration with soldiers in the region. And the indigenous community remembered what they had lived through years before, when members of their communities were murdered. They fled to Buenaventura out of fear.
y la comunidad indígena recordó lo que había vivido años antes, donde habían asesinado a integrantes de sus comunidades y por el temor se desplazaron a Buenaventura.
And why the displacement? It is a very strategic zone for trafficking drugs. It is a zone controlled by the military, but strangely enough, paramilitaries are able to move through there quite freely. Materials used to process coca leaf into cocaine also pass through very easily. So then, this is one of the reasons. But the main one is that the community is located on the collective territory of Lower Calima, and they are within the implementation area of the project that will increase the size of the port of Buenaventura, in what is known as the Sweetwater Project. Their territory borders the port. This is also happening with Afro-descendant communities who again, strangely enough, were denied the title to 11,000 hectares of collectively held territory, exactly within the boundaries of where this mega project will happen.
Quien extrañamente también les negaron la titulación de 11.000 hectáreas del territorio colectivo, justo la zona de incidencia de este megaproyecto.
Y en mayo hubo una comisión de verificación.
In May, there was a verification commission whose goal was to ascertain the current conditions in the area. What's the situation like right now?
Importante recalcar como una contradicción entre lo que
It is important to stress the contradiction between how the community is living at the moment in inhumane conditions of displacement because they are in a place where the majority of people living there do not have their own personal space. They have no independence. Children, women, adults and elders are all in the same space and health conditions are precarious. Contrast this with the conditions found on the Verification Commission, an indigenous community with very important infrastructure, potable water, houses with solid foundations of good construction, excellent bathrooms and an aqueduct. They have very good living conditions in their territory. Of course, after 10 months of displacement, there has been a process of deterioration of what they had on their reservation. But the starkest difference that was found was in the quality of their lands, production and environment compared to the situation they live in Buenaventura.
Lo más llamativo que se encontró, la calidad de sus tierras, la producción, la calidad de su ambiente, comparativamente con la situación que viene en Buenaventura.
Y el auto 004 de la Corte Constitucional de 2009 establece
Decree 004, issued by the Constitutional Court in 2009, established protections for the fundamental rights of displaced indigenous groups. What measures have different government entities taken in terms of providing humanitarian assistance for these people?
Pues lo primero que hay que afirmar es que no ha habido ayuda. Hasta este año, por una tutela ganada por las comunidades.
The first thing that must be said is that there has been no help until this year, following a lawsuit won by some communities. They just began to register the Nonam people within the database of displaced persons. They didn't register them before as a way of denying the displacement. And of course, if they are not displaced, they don't have to give them anything. Not humanitarian aid, or education, or food. They have failed to provide even the basics, not even water, because in the place where they are displaced, the water arrives in tankers, so there is not even water. There has been a complete lack of attention, and because of that, a court recently decided in favor of the communities.
What have the psychosocial effects of displacement been on the indigenous families?
Medir en este momento los efectos psicosociales es muy complicado y no sería.
Measuring psychosocial effects at this moment is very complicated, and it would not be irresponsible. It is important to realize what the situation is. A people living on its land, near a river, with a lot of space and a good quality of life. They are transferred to a place where they can't even do their traditional dances. During Holy Week, they did one of their traditional dances, and other people started to complain, saying that they were making a racket and doing other things people thought were improper. It was just a dance. So there has been a lot of pressure. Pressure regarding the use of water. Pressure because they forced them to stay inside from 6 p.m. onwards. Because there have been several killings in the area. The paramilitaries control the region and forbid them to be outside after 5 or 6 p.m. So they are subjected to conditions that are absolutely different from what they have lived before. And this creates irreparable damages that will have to be evaluated in the future.
Por fuera, entonces es someterlos a una condición absolutamente diferente a la que vivían antes. Entonces eso genera unos daños irreparables que habrá que evaluar en el futuro.
What's the situation like for displaced women in the community?
Es una situación muy difícil, como compartiendo algunos hechos, por ejemplo, mujeres.
It is a very difficult situation when one looks at some of the things that have happened. For example, women who have seen their children born and then die because of a lack of basic necessities. There have been cases like this year. Women are moved to a smaller space and have to figure out how to care for their children in a situation that breaks with their traditional customs. It is an inhumane situation, and they pay a much higher price because of the role they have played in the communities on their reservations, but they can no longer fulfill this role here.
Dentro de las comunidades en sus resguardos, que no lo pueden jugar aquí.
¿Y cuál exactamente es el papel?
What exactly is the role of the Interchurch Commission in this process?
La Comisión Intereclesial pues no conocía a los Nonam antes de su desplazamiento.
The Interchurch Commission did not know the Nonam before their displacement. When they were displaced, we learnt of the situation from Afro-descendant communities and youth we accompany in Lower Kalima. They told us about the lack of assistance for them and the difficult situation in terms of their risk, accompaniment and protection, and they asked us for accompaniment. There is an ancestral relationship among Afro communities. They contact us, and the work we have done has been to first give strength and human support, to be with them, and organize ourselves so that we could help call attention to their situation, provide legal assistance and political advocacy, and also make some connections so they could obtain food and health assistance through different organizations. This has basically been the work, and we anticipate accompanying them in the process they are putting forward to return to their lands. There already was a verification visit in May, as you remember, and now there are plans for another verification to start preparing the reservation, the crops and the territory for their return to it.
Y ya ir adecuando el resguardo, adecuando las siembras, adecuando el territorio para retornar a su territorio.
Father, thank you very much for your thoughts on this important issue.
Pues muchas gracias.
Thank you for the opportunity to share these reflections and the situation of the Nonam people. Thank you very much to everyone, and I extend an invitation to support these processes in Colombia in whatever way you can.